are looking at doing a major display come November this year. And I'm going to explain what we're doing. Maylands is a suburb of churches. Peninsula settled by Methodists on the Tranby. They held their services in their homesteads and on their farms in the early years. They also worked to build Wesley Church in Perth on the corner of Hay Street and William Street. The Catholic Church seems to have been the next denomination to formalise religion in the suburb, with priests travelling from Perth to Maylands in 1893. That's before Maylands was, but Guildford Road was on the way through, and there would have been people, Catholic people, on the farms, and Mass was said in a boarding house on Guildford Road. If anybody's ever got any information on that, it would be appreciated. The post office directories do not have numbers back in those days. The fire station was used at a later date, around 1904. Maylands was named in 1896, and by 1902 the Methodists had built the first church in the suburb. That was in 6th Avenue. And there it is. That's the first actual church in Maylands. It's no longer there. The Baptist church came next, and here we run into mysteries. In 1904, a church was built by the Baptist Union in 8th Avenue. You can see up there, Maylands, it's 1904, Baptist church under auspices of the Baptist Association of WA. And they opened it. Mrs. Hine and Selby were the architects for the church. The church was filled. So that's 1904. I looked right through looking for further information, and the next thing I find is a new church for Maylands in 1912, 8 years later. They were considering the question of forming a Baptist church in the suburb. 1904, they already had a church. Something strange has happened. I don't know the answer to the mystery. Who knows? I would suggest that it would have been about the same size as the Methodist church, and it was somewhere in 8th Avenue. But they've moved across to the corner of Central Avenue and Railway Parade, where they will hold morning and evening services until a church building is erected. And there is that building, the Second Baptist Church in Maylands, at the corner of Railway Parade and Central Avenue, and I think we all know that particular store. I was lucky enough to get the shot almost exactly at the same direction the original newspaper shot was taken in. So that's the second church, and then there was the third church at Coode Street. That, of course, has also been replaced. That was opened in 1908. In the meantime, the Anglicans in 1906 laid the foundation stone for their first church in Maylands. The Lieutenant Governor opened it in 1906. And there it is. I think we all know that building as well. The Post Office Directory shows that there were Wesleyan, this is in 1911, Wesleyans in 6th Avenue, that's our Methodist church. The Reverend W.K. Turton in the Presbyterians in 7th Avenue, a Church of Christ in 8th Avenue, and I wonder if that is what happened to the Baptist church in 8th Avenue. It became a Church of Christ. I don't know, but further research might find it. And there was a Congregational church in Falkirk Street, and two Catholic priests in, oh, that didn't work properly, in Guildford Road. So by 1911 there are two Catholic priests living in Guildford Road. So much for a short and incomplete view of the history of early Maylands churches and its history. The current state of religion in our suburb is even more varied. How many of these places of worship can you place? Baptist Church, we all know where that is in Coode Street. We all know the Buddhist temple. Church of Christ in 8th Avenue, yes. Caledonian Avenue, that's right. And that actually runs through, it's a double block, back to back, and runs through to the next street. Eritrean Orthodox Church. Well, it's where they hold their church services. That's St Joseph's Hall, next to Our Lady, Queen of Martyrs. Oops, I thought that had gone on. It hasn't. We have an Islamic community mosque in the area. Does anyone know where that is? That's the one, yes. I really should have double-checked some of this. I thought I had. So we've got our Jehovah's Witnesses. Does anyone know where they are? Next door, that's right. Our Lady, Queen of Martyrs, everyone knows that one. The Polish Catholic Church. And St Luke's Anglican Church, the new church. Next door, of course, is the old, what has now become the church hall. Salvation Army, everybody knows where that is? Right next to, it's now part of the Polish church.
I started down there in about 1938.
Did you? Right. It's quite a striking building by itself. And that's an important part of our history. Then there's the Ukrainian Catholic Church. Who can pick this one? That's the one on top of the hill, and it's got the big dome on, which you can't see from that angle. I decided to hide the dome. That's right, yes. And that's their memorial church. It memorialises 1,000 years of struggle to keep the Ukrainian people together as a part of the Catholic community. Then there's Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Now this one's the hidden one. Anyone know it? Yes, down the bottom. Down near Gibney Reserve. But don't try to park in front of it because the street goes like that. They've cut the street in half so that you don't go up and down. I have seen people walking up there and it's a struggle. And then there's the Uniting Church. That's on this side of just down the road. All these 14 places of worship. Hey, how big is Maylands? And we've got 14 different places of worship. It'll be the focus of a 3-month display to be held across both display rooms and the old police station. We're hoping to show the buildings, inside and out, with some of the people. There will be in excess of 150 images. And they're spread across every display board we have. There might even be extras not on display boards. We might have to move into the library as well. And each place of worship will have its own separate display board. Our Mayor has agreed to open the event. Unfortunately, the opening itself will have to be an invitation-only event due to space restrictions. Once the event is open, it'll be available Tuesday mornings, Wednesdays and Friday afternoons. Any questions?
John, I understand from reading some stuff that we have quite a large Indian and Chinese community within Maylands. Is there any evidence of in New Sea or any of the Chinese?
I haven't found any knowledge of that other than the Buddhist temple. That's the only Asian.
Interesting answer.
Yeah, I have been asking
Where
around.
they go to worship.
I think they moved. They've got one in town, or closer to town. Yeah. Other questions?
Where is the Anglican Catholic Church?
That used to be down in Susan Street, and it is now a vacant block. It's been demolished. I think that was the site of the second Catholic church in Maylands. They had the site up here at Our Lady Queen of Martyrs, and they also built a church down in Susan Street, and it was a proper church. The one I have got a single photograph of, just before it was demolished, was basically a house that's been converted into a church. So,
And Unitarian?
Unitarian?
Unitarian Church, I saw a sign somewhere, and I was rambling through the neighbourhood.
I have not come across that at all.
I see the sign of the church.
Whereabouts? You've caught me out. Whereabouts is that?
When I walked down, what's the place, from the supermarket, up the hill, Caledonia.
It's in Caledonian.
And I see a sign there somewhere in the neighbourhood, the Unitarian.
Okay, I've got to go looking for that one. Thank you for that. Right. I shall look for it. Unitarians. Right. Yeah. Any other questions at all?
Just a comment. When you did the research for the Baptist Church, did you come across a book out of the shadows about the history of the Baptist Church in Western Australia?
I have read that. I have read that.
Weisel's got a copy.
Yes.
So there might be, I haven't read it, but there might be information there about the Maylands Church.
Right. My family is Baptist, so they actually have a copy. I have read that. And there is interesting information in there which I'm accumulating, but I need to go and see the current pastor there to get an up-to-date situation with him.
Do any of them pay rates to the council?
I know nothing. I know nothing.
The Uniting Church, that was a combination of like Presbyterian, Methodist and
Congregation.
I think it was Methodist.
There's a Methodist from, I think, the 6th Avenue group. There was one, the 7th Avenue, opposite Our Lady Queen of Martyrs. That was the Presbyterian church. And, what is it, Forest Hill? Forest Park, which was in Mount Lawley. And they came across and joined with the Maylands Uniting Church as well. So the history actually spreads outside the suburb when you include in the Uniting Church. So.
I think it's also worth pointing out though as well that you're visiting each of the churches.
Yes.
You're getting a fantastic response.
Getting a very, very good response. The initial response, surprisingly, is one of, whatever denomination we are, why should we be involved in it? And then they realise that it's a chance to meet other people, to talk to other organisations. And as I keep saying to them, they are a part of the history of Maylands. And that is very important. So all of them are part of the history of Maylands.
Just two small instances about the Salvation Army.
Mm-hmm.
One, they had a decent band.
Yes.
Which used to follow.
Yep.
Back into the other one was way back, I think it might have been in the was, the leader at the time was the Major Slap, in this term.
Right.
She was a woman, all
Right.
and my thoughts were, then and now, why not? I could never understand any of the furor that's been going on ever since. She was quite naturally the leader of the group.
Yes.
She had full authority. We started it all. You know, the church is simply very backward.
On the Salvation Army, we've got very, very few photographs of the Salvation Army in Maylands. So if anybody has access to any photographs...
You have the photo of the wall next to it. There was the church and a hall.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I was hoping for photos inside when it's in occupation. I've got one photograph from, I think, 1953.
I've got it here, but I can't bring it out.
Right. I think 1953 of the band up on the stage. But that's all I've got. The only other photographs I've got are ones I've taken myself of the exterior. So if anybody knows of any interesting photographs of the Salvation Army or of its band, I really would appreciate a copy of them if possible.
So I had information myself when I first moved here in the 50s. The Salvation Army used to go down and play in different corners. They go down and play in the corner of East Street and then they moved down to Peninsula Road. They used to go and play all around the place.
Right.
Just march down,
Yes.
play out songs, hymns.
Yes.
We've got photographs, we've got lots of accounts of the ones that sound the Salvation Army band from the railway station down to the Citadel. Well, the sound made a great impression.
And a decent bunch of lassies, tambourines. They used to go into the pub.
Yes, selling the war cry.
Well, confronting people.
As well, yes.
That was from a personal point of view, it was quite odd, really, because in some ways the Salvation Army had come from a situation from England, poverty-stricken police areas, and things like that, and they often took up cases of poverty where the other churches, particularly the snobby ones, wouldn't touch. And it was apparent to me, even as a young boy, that there was something different about the fact that it took a fair bit of courage, actually, to actually march behind the band into the church. And it was almost as if you were separate, because we dared do that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Fascinating feeling. I still feel it. You know, I still have that.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
What about the spirituality church in Caledonia?
The Christian spiritualists. Yes. I'm still trying to get in touch with the person in charge there. I have emailed them, but I haven't got a response yet. So I may finish up having to go visit them when they're open. Same as I'll have to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, because they don't have an email. Yes.
My mother was a member there.
Where at the Jehovah's Witnesses?
At the spiritualist
Oh,
church.
spiritualist,
At
right.
one stage they donated a seat for the front that was cemented in.
Yes.
I used to go up there with Mum a couple of times and sit around and just listen. And they would take in various things from the garden, flowers or various good stuff, and they'd get messages.
Right.
They still do it.
They still do. Well,
Sunday night.
yeah, it was done long before, so they had. I'm actually amazed that this was done. It was interesting to see the photo there.
Yes.
Because, as I say, my memory goes back to the 40s, and I just thought, spiritualists, they won't last long.
The interesting thing about that place of worship is that it is, as I said, the two blocks back to back, and if you go out the back end of it, there is St Luke's over the road.
Rollins.
Yes, that's right. So you go straight through. So there's 3 blocks in a row, or 4 actually, which are religious places of worship. Any other questions? Comments? Thoughts?
So thank you, John. You've actually probably opened up something that wouldn't have been opened otherwise. I think it's interesting that an affirmed atheist is actually doing this research.
So far I have not been struck by lightning.
So we can look at it objectively, and it's a wonderful thing that may happen out of it. I think this is just the beginning of something, and we don't know where we're going, but it's good to have a start.
And it's going to be for 3 months, so plenty of time for people to come and visit.
Thank you.